graduate from the City University. He received his BBA in Management Information System from the University of Oklahoma. Mary, you better say yes. Oklahoma's most prominent industry, trade, Oklahoma Telephone Association. He's Oklahoma Banking Association, the Rural Enterprises of Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Film and Music Hall, the Oklahoma City Zoo. In many recent years, he has worked extensively for the neighborhood of Osage, demonstrating the impact of Oklahoma activity in July 2020. He is currently working with Oklahoma to establish the impact of private health care within the state of Oklahoma. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to put your hands together, Dr. Todd.
Right? What?
You already told me.
Yeah,
What you didn't mention there was I'm bipartisan when it comes to universities like Agee at Oklahoma State. My wife's an MD, and that's her only, her father was a huge OSU guy. So she likes to say that when she was at the Health Sciences Center in Oklahoma City, that they all talk about, well, we're not really OU, that's a football school. Well, thank you guys so much for having me out here today. This is a pleasure to go around the state and share information that I've been able to collect, and in particular with respect to tribe and tribal activities. I'm a lifelong Wokea. I grew up in Oklahoma City, which, by the way, I didn't realize it was a rivalry with Tulsa until I met most of you. So apparently it's a thing up here. So it's a pleasure to come up here and speak to you all tonight. I was told to let you guys know that my grandparents had a farm right off of 60. I think it's right outside of Burbank. My mom was born in Burbank, Oklahoma in 1932. My grandfather died in 36, and so they ended up having to sell the farm there in 36. But I've got all these old photos of them with the little kids there on the farm, which is right off 60. It's kind of like a little mini homecoming. All right, so today what I want to talk about tonight, I guess, what I want to talk to you about is sort of an informal collection of thoughts about tribal impact. I'll go over some of the numbers, but I'd like to put them into context for people. I'm assuming most people here are Oklahomans and have been in Oklahoma for a while, and what I find in talking to non-tribal folks is there's a general misunderstanding of information about tribes. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so I see myself as somebody who just likes to spread accurate information and provide that to tribal and non-tribal folks. So the presentation tonight, we're going to do a little overview a brief overview of what I would consider tribal structures for the purposes of impact. Then I want to talk about the impacts themselves. Then I want to talk a little bit about the benefits to the state government, just a few of the benefits of the state government of tribal impacts. A brief mention on other benefits to Oklahomans. And then I want to break this into a little bit of a regional discussion. So for our purposes of estimating impacts, we tend to look at what are the activities that tribes engage in. Well, every tribe has some form of tribal government. Some tribes have a fairly extensive tribal government, some have smaller government, and most tribes have some sort of tribal businesses. Obviously, gaming is the largest of those businesses in the state, but there are a lot of other businesses. So on the business side, again, gaming is the most significant. And this is where I think there's a big misunderstanding amongst people in Oklahoma. According to the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act of 1988, the revenues from gaming the tribes receive are essentially supposed to be used by the tribe to promote tribal welfare. promote tribal programs and services, promote tribal economic development and all of that sort of thing. I think a lot of people in Oklahoma think that tribes make money off gaming and it's kind of like this big corporation or something. But I do like to point out that what tribes do with the gaming revenues is then they turn around, they start other businesses. So tribes are engaged in a lot of businesses in manufacturing. You know, everybody's probably familiar with the Bedray chocolate, the Chickasaws do in South Central Oklahoma. The Choctaws are getting really heavily into producing gun ammunition, that sort of thing. So they engage in a ton of different manufacturing activities. Professional services. There are a lot of tribes are engaging in consulting with government contracts or other companies. Obviously, tribes are engaged in a lot of retail activities, finance, and a lot of other businesses that are not gaming necessarily, just for gaming. And again, ultimately, the purpose of these revenues is to support the betterment of the tribes and the tribal citizens. And they do this for the government. Of course, there's the expenditures that all governments expend in their basic operation. You have to hire people to run payroll. You have accountants. You have a lot of tribes will have a government system that's kind of like the U.S. governmental system, where they have an executive, legislative, and just a judicial branch. They take all sorts of forms. But also, what the governments do is they provide programs and services to the tribal citizens. Some of the biggest programs that provide health care, I'll mention this a little bit later. All sorts of social services, education services. Of course, this could be tribal education, this could be training, this could be scholarships that go to tribal citizens, all of those things. History and culture is this sort of category that we kind of throw everything related to tribal history or that sort of thing, or tribal culture. And of course, tribes engage in a lot of workforce development. A lot of tribes have training programs, retraining people to get new jobs, those sorts of things. And of course, a lot of tribes are engaged in housing services and many others. All right. So with that backdrop, let me talk a little bit about the So this, can you guys hear me? I'm a professor. I can't stand here.
Go hard.
Kramer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is from the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. I got on their website and tried to see what they had listed as the top employers in the state of Oklahoma. It was interesting the way they had it broken out. Their list would have had number 1 DOD, number 2 Walmart, number 3 was Integris, and you kind of went on down. And then they had Chickasaw Gaming and something, and then later they had Chickasaw Nation Government, then they had Cherokee Entertainment, and then they had Cherokee Government. And so for some reason they had, yes? Oh, for some reason they had separated these activities, which I found odd considering that the Department of Defense includes all the Department of Defense, including Vance and Enid and Tinker and Zilla. So I combined this is employment, it's top employers by employment. And when I combined the employment of the ones that the Department of Commerce had listed, this is not even all tribal activities. There are many tribes that would show up on this, but this I think is their best estimate. What you notice really quickly is 3 of the top 10 industries in the state, and I say that very loosely. I don't personally consider tribes an industry, but by this ranking, the tribes are 3 of the top 10 employers in the state, and that's a pretty impressive number. This isn't even stuff that this isn't data I collected from tribes or anything. This is just the Department of Commerce. Again, something I don't think a lot of people are familiar with. So let me talk a little bit about the impacts that have been calculated. I've done a lot of studies for individual tribes, studies for OIGA, I did an all-tribe study back in 2012, but I want to focus on 2 primary studies. The first one is the most recent gaming-only study we did in 2016 for the Indian Gaming Association. This was 2015 data, and we estimated, based upon the data that was provided to us by the participating tribes, and for the non-participating tribes, we sort of extrapolated based upon what we knew about operations. We estimated the total economic impact on the state from gaming only was $7.2 billion. I don't ever find, I guess some people think those numbers are impressive or not. To me, it's all about context. I'm not sure I know what 7.2 billion means, other than I wish I had my bank account, I suppose. To me, this is really where the kind of story starts. Gaming employment and downstream industries that experience gains in demand for their goods and services as a result of gaming, the total employment of all of that together is almost 50,000 employees in the state of Oklahoma, of which 60% of those jobs are in rural areas in Oklahoma. And I'm going to talk about regional differences here in a little bit because it's really significant. They've paid out income of about $2.3 billion of wages and benefits. They're at 64% rural. Why is that important? Because if you think about where that income is spent, if you're from a rural community in Oklahoma, every dollar that's spent in your community is so much more significant than a dollar you spend in Tulsa or a dollar you spend in Oklahoma City or Dallas. 64% of those wages went to rural parts of Oklahoma. So that was gaming only. This past year, let me cover this. So we also collected some information that the tribes offered up information on individual visitors. It's actual visits, not necessarily unique visitors, because some visitors visit multiple times. This is 2015 data. In 2015, we estimated there were 46 million visitors to Oklahoma gaming facilities. Of those, 60% occurred in rural gaming locations. In-state visitors accounted for about 27 million of that. 50% of those were in rural areas, 50% urban. Out-of-state visitors, this bottom box is the important one. 19 million people came from outside the state of Oklahoma to visit Oklahoma casinos. I mean, that's an impressive story. And of those who came, 84% visited rural casinos in Oklahoma. So the reason that is so significant as an economist, I like to think we sometimes can put industries into two types. There's what we call a base industry, and then there's a non-base industry. Base industry you might think of as an export industry. Any industry that exists in your community that creates a good or service that they then export outside that community. Those are the most important industries because those are the base from which all of these other local industries crop up to service the citizens that live in those areas. And so as I observe this, I start to recognize that gaming in Oklahoma is really an export industry. And because of that, it's very, very significant industry in Oklahoma because it becomes the base, especially in some of these rural communities, it becomes the base for employment, the base for local economic development, the base for economics that exist in these rural areas. All right, so this summer we released an all-tribe, all-everything economic impact study. So this was an estimate of all tribal activity. It did not include other things that exist. It didn't include sort of the adjacent things to tribal activities. This would be tribes themselves. We had, out of the 38 recognized tribes, we had 15 that gave us data. And we estimated, based upon some other per averages, what the data would have been for the other tribes. And based upon that report, we estimated that the economic impact of the tribes was about $13 billion. This was 2017 data, 2019. About $13 billion in 2017. Again, for me, moving on to the really significant and interesting number, the employment is almost 100,000 Oklahomans. Now, one thing I forgot to mention on the gaming report, we actually delved into the gaming report a little bit deeper than we did on a lot of other reports. We gathered rural and urban data. We gathered some demographic information on employees. On the gaming side, of gaming employees, 60% were not citizens of any tribe. And to me, that's a really, really, really big point that Oklahomans need to understand, that 60% of the people working in these casinos are tribal affiliated in any way. I'm not sure, we didn't do that on this, But I find it reasonable to assume that 40 to 60% of the people employed in all of these tribal activities are probably non-tribal. And of course, this number includes all of the downstream industries employment too. So anytime somebody does business with a tribe, who are they? Is that all tribal folks? Is it non-tribal folks? It's probably the majority non-tribal. So the story here is it's a significant employer in the state. They employ tribal citizens, they employ non-tribal citizens. They're good for all of the homes. And lastly, wages were just under $5 billion in income and benefits in 2017. All right, so we looked at least 2 to 3 benefits that the state receives as a result of tribal activities. The first one we're all somewhat familiar with. These are exclusivity fees. So you guys are probably all familiar with this, but I always like to sort of explain what exclusivity fees are. Per compact, the tribes pay a fee based upon a percentage of all adjusted gross revenues on Class 3 and non-house-paying gains to the state for the exclusive right to operate those facilities. So they're called exclusivity fees. If you go back, the compacts were signed by different tribes beginning in 2004, 2005, that time frame. This is Oklahoma fiscal year. So fiscal year 2006, I see a couple of stories here. First of all, this is, to me, pent-up demand for gaming. You think about all these Oklahomans who wanted gaming, what you're seeing here is they had been crying out for it. And once it was provided, tribes couldn't get it out there fast enough. But as tribes built up, had capital projects, built up all these casinos, you can see how quickly the revenues were rising. That shows pent-up demand to me. Then you enter this period of this sort of steady state of growth, exclusivity fees. And then, some of you may remember 2014, it's barely an asterisk now. In 2014, you would have thought the sky was falling, the world was ending, everybody was talking about gaming saturation. I remember even an article that David Blatt did talking about how this, we need to start looking at sources of revenue, that this is all done. The very next year, we hit the growth spurt again. We had this sort of steady state. And look at 2019. This year, 2019, the revenues for the state were up 7% over what they were in 2018. First quarter fiscal year 20 starts, the state's fiscal year is July to June. They've already collected $39.4 million, so that's about 6% above what they were in 2019. So gaming revenues, and thus gaming exclusivity fees to the state, have continued to increase. This is a great source of revenue for the tribes. As an economist, I look at this and say, these revenues come because people want to engage in this entertainment activity. So it's a benefit to people who do come and frequent the casinos because that's what they like to do. They're willing to spend money on it, and that's what they like to do, and that's evidenced by the revenues that you guys make. Since inception, the latest updated number, the tribes have given about $1.6 billion to the state since inception of exclusivity. Incidentally, for those who may not know, the way this is broken down, let's say that $448 million the tribes sent to the state by statute takes $250,000 of that right off the top and gives it to the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. Of the remaining dollars, they take 88% and it immediately goes to House Bill 1017 revolving fund for education. That was how this was set up, that the majority of these compact fees are going to support education. The remaining 12% of the revenues go to the general revenue fund for the state level. All right. We estimated that the fiscal impacts based on tribal activities in the state, you can kind of add them up in categories here. Household income, property, and other taxes and fees, almost $100 million to the state. Social insurance, employer plus employee, about $15 million. Corporate income revenues, corporate income tax revenues, about $720 million. Tribal exclusivity fees, this was 2017, so it was $133,940. So we estimate that total fiscal impacts were about $1 billion in 2017. This is another big one that we recently started to look into, which is this idea that because tribal citizens go to tribal health care facilities, there's a Medicaid savings to the state. So if I'm on Medicaid and I go to a hospital, the federal government, this FMAP changes slightly every year, but for 2018, the federal match of that Medicaid dollars was 59%. So for every dollar that of services I incurred, 59 cents of that was paid by the federal government, 41 cents would have been paid by the state. If I'm a tribal citizen and I go to a tribal facility, an IHS facility, or a Title V, Title I facility, the federal government still pays its 59%, and the state pays nothing. And so because of these tribal facilities, and speaking with the Department of Health tribal liaison person, she told me that in 2018, there were $213 million in Medicaid expenditures or Medicaid services at these tribal facilities. If the state would have had to pay their portion of that, there would have been $88 million the state would have paid, but they did not have to pay. So because of the tribal health care, the state saved $88 million. Some other benefits of Oklahoma. I've already talked about education, but it's not just exclusivity fees. Tribes spend lots of dollars on education programs. Tribes give lots of money to local school districts, local projects, donate to gym improvements, donate to all sorts of education, and also provide scholarships to citizens. OCU, I know the Chickasaw Nation has given us, we have a program there called the Chickasaw Scholarship Program, where they pay for their citizens full ride to OCU. I mean, it's a great program, and these sorts of programs are going on at institutions all around the state. This is a biggie a lot of Oklahomans don't know anything about. On tribal land, the federal tribal transportation program brings money straight to the state in order to build new infrastructure or maintain existing road and bridge infrastructure. In 2017, the federal government spent $42.6 million in the state of Oklahoma on tribal roads and bridge projects. But those are on tribal lands in Oklahoma, which are, it could be a county road, it could be a county highway, it could be a street somewhere. Those aren't streets or roads that are used by tribal citizens, it's used by everybody. Every dollar that's spent by the feds in this program is a dollar that the Oklahoma Department of Transportation doesn't have to spend and our tax dollars don't have to spend. So $42.6 million free for the citizens of Oklahoma on road and bridge improvements. Just on highway miles, Oklahoma, these are the BIA districts. Oklahoma is part of two, Eastern Oklahoma District, and part of the Southern Plains District, which I'm going to mess this up. It's Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, I think. You'll notice the total miles of road infrastructure that the BIA is supporting. If you put those two together, we're the largest road and bridge, most significant one in the nation. All right, so let me bring this home with this regional discussion. All right, so we were talking at our table a lot about Tulsa and Oklahoma City. The United States and really the world has been urbanizing really since the beginning of time, but in earnest since the Industrial Revolution, especially since the turn of the 20th century. This trend has continued so that in the United States, 81% of our population lives in urban areas. In Oklahoma, it's about 58 to 60%.
Or something that rhymes with that.
On this map, blue counties represent counties that have lost population from 2010 to 2018. Gold counties are counties that have gained population since 2010. In Oklahoma, there are three sort of driving factors that are going on here. There's the urbanization factor. So you'll notice the counties around Tulsa, the counties around Oklahoma City are gold. Canadian County here has been the fastest growing county in Oklahoma for over a decade. It's crazy. If you know anybody that lives in Mustang or Utah, it's not here. You see the pockets of blue. In sort of a normal state, what you'd see is you'd see gold, gold, blue, darker blue, darker blue, darker blue, and so on. You'll notice in Oklahoma we have some gold in some rural areas that you wouldn't normally expect. Over here, what do you guys think this is? It's oil and gas, yeah. It's oil and gas improvement. So there's no reason that these counties should be growing like this. It's all oil and gas employment. And then you have this going on, which which is kind of interesting. What do you think this is? Gaming? So, Choctaw Gaming, yeah. Yeah, that's Bryan County, that's the Choctaw Casino, and there's Lone County, that's Windsor. So, this driver, we like to call this I-35 corridor effect. Sometimes I'll tell people that I consider Oklahoma City, Texas, as far as this North City. As Dallas continues to grow, you'll notice it continues to push up. And this has an effect on these counties. So there is some symbiosis between Oklahoma City and Dallas. There's some networks that exist between those two that don't really exist between Dallas and, let's say, Tulsa or whatever. So Oklahoma City does benefit some from this Dallas I-35 corridor growth effect. And the counties in between benefit from that also. Now, to take advantage of that, tribes, this is a map of all the tribal areas in Oklahoma. Of course, yours suggestion was this down here in this Choctaw Chickasaw area. So those two things are kind of occurring at the same time. Texas is pushing north, and the tribes are providing opportunities for Texans to come in and buy goods and services. What I'd also like to talk about here is if you think about all those counties down here in Choctaw area that were blue, all those counties up here in Cherokee and the northeast line that are blue, and I noticed Osage County is slightly blue. What do you think those counties would look like if there weren't tribes there having this tribal activity that I just talked about? It would be much more blue than that. So the story to me, the most interesting story is, we saw that tribes were the third, fifth, sixth, according to ODOT, major employers in the state of Oklahoma. The reason that urban areas grow is because cities are productive. That's the reason corporations locate there. But your tribes are never going to locate in Dallas or Oklahoma City or Tulsa or Little Rock. Your tribes are going to be located right here forever. And so I always like to say, well, how much would the Department of Commerce be willing to give out in incentives to get a $13 billion industry to locate in our state? Think about that for a minute. And then consider this. Once that industry locates in your state, then you have to keep giving them incentives because Arkansas might decide they want to offer better incentives next year. Tribes are here and they're never going to leave. And they provide benefits to especially these rural communities that otherwise would not be thriving. We know what those benefits are. Because I'm working on the tribal health care one, I kind of put this map together. One of the other biggest growth drivers for communities is location of healthcare facilities. People do not want to live where there's no health care. Look at where all the tribal health care facilities are. They are just like that tribal map. These tribal health care facilities guarantee that people will still live in these rural areas. And some of these tribal health care facilities are starting to not only serve tribal citizens, but I know in some tribes they serve workers who work for the tribes who are not citizens. And I know the Muskogee Creek Nation has a new facility that's going to serve anyone who wants to come and get served in So to me, this is another big growth effect of tribes. All right, so with that, I want to invite you, if you want a copy of either of these two studies I mentioned, the OIGA study, you can go to oiga.org, and again, that was the 2016 study. It's the most recent study. The All Tribe Impacts, if you want a complete a version of that study, you can go to oknativeimpact.com and download that. I think with that, I'm willing to take any questions. Do I have time for questions?
Working on a full set. Maybe.
Yes, I'd like to take the question first.
Oh, I'm sorry. But they have friends that's babies.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful presentation. 20 years ago, I know there was a lot of data, but one thing that stuck out in my mind is native zones were about 8% of the population in the state of Oklahoma, but they own 16% of the natural resources as well. And if you translate that to, a worldwide situation, I think it told me and our people that were involved that, we need to get more proactive in developing our stuff rather than allowing somebody else to do it. Because I still think even with all the economic benefit we have, we're one of the lowest, probably salary-wise, annual income, we're one of the lowest, even though we have all these resources. So, do you have any comments on that?
So I'm not familiar with that specific data that you were talking about. I would just say this, that, so one of my passions would be to go back and gather all sorts of tribal data for the compacts and after the compacts and demonstrate how the compacts have benefited or theoretically not benefited the tribe. And just from what I observed from working with tribes on a daily basis, what they're doing with the revenues to help their citizens. I remember Governor Anatoly of the Chickasaw Nation, at one point he was wanting to do a study on, to take an econometric look at the bang for your buck on individual tribal programs. So if for every dollar we invest in this program, how does it benefit our citizens? Real passion for the tribal citizens. And I experienced that every time I go and visit. And again, I think the story is, I can't comment necessarily on the wages being lower or higher. I just do know that tribes support a lot of jobs and a lot of wages in the state, and those numbers keep getting better and better over time.
Any more questions?
Must be late.
Thank you very much. It was a fabulous presentation. I learned a lot. All of it learned a lot. It's just wonderful what we're trying to do for the state of Oklahoma. I hope our governor will appreciate that eventually. We'd like to give you this token of our appreciation and hope you get some good use out of it. And thank you so much for coming.
Your point.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask my council to come up here with me. First off, before we shift gears, we're going to hand out our Producer of the Year. But before I give that element, I want to thank my council. We went through the Transportation Improvement Program. I used to direct this for the nation. They asked us that when we go in there, how come ours say 100 plus numbers with other tribes? Because we had did that many projects. This council has got, and we obligated $122 million to the state of Oklahoma on our roads and bridges. So with that, I want to give yourselves head right on the growth production. We also have that involvement, and it goes into the fund to come back directly to our schools. I appreciate you bringing up that information. A lot of people don't realize that. But we pay as we go. And I really like the part about the no taxes. There's not a tax I don't pay. And with that being said, I want to go into the Producer of the Year. First off, I want to thank my council. We go through so much of the grind, the things that we've had to go through, and we went through it with you. This producer of the year is, yeah, it's a part of the summit, it's a part of the banquet, but it's a part of our lives. It means something to us. I know each and every one of these folks and families. We are generations of trying to be here and just help our people. Well, with that, that's why we want our producers here. We have weathered so many things, and my idea is that, yeah, we've done some complaining, but we're gonna have to do some fixing. And that's what this summit's all about. I'd like to thank our presenters. You covered that so well. I'm a firm believer in thanking our staff that's helped us put this on. Your volunteers, it's more than that. You're helping your people. And with that being said, I want you to put your hands together for someone who has worked hard this year, and we have an award for them. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce Purdue. We're looking at the future of the Osage. This is it. We won't see this, but you heard some very smart people talk about our next life here. They're going to talk to us about how long does it last. It's going to last as long as we let it. This earth here is going to be here. And the other part is, I like something that was told to you. Those tribes aren't leaving. So we're going to make the best of what we have, and we can do this as representing the head right owner. Is that we want to thank the producer for bringing in not only the quality, but the quantity. In a tough arena, we have kept going, and they basically kept it for us. With that, I want you to just give us a little time. I'm going to hand out some gifts.